The Swine Disease Reporting System is a project, collaborative project among six VDLs here in the United States, the Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. So Iowa State University, University of Minnesota, the Ohio ADDL, the Purdue Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, Kansas, and also South Dakota State University. So six swine-centric veterinary diagnostic labs that we have here that we aggregate all the diagnostic data, mainly PCR data, and also sequencing, focus more in PRRS virus or 5 sequencing. And then after we aggregate all this data, we can report back the information to the swine industry. So what we do is like mainly the main trends of detections in terms of 9 swine pathogens that we monitor. And the beauty of the project for me is that not only we aggregate data, but we also have the interpretation of an advisory group.
Welcome to the Swinehead Canada podcast show, brought to you by Wisenetics. We are dedicated to bringing you the latest insights and discussions in the Canadian pork industry. So I'm Miranda Smith, and I'll be the host for today's episode. And today's guest is Guilherme Cezar. He is the coordinator of the Swine Disease Reporting System in the US. So welcome to the show, Guilherme.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before we get started on talking about what exactly the Swine Disease Reporting System does, can you first give us a little bit of a background to yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Brazil, where I graduated and I got my DVM there. And after I graduated in Brazil, I could work a little bit in the swine industry back there, working for an autogenous vaccine company for up to 3 years. And then after that, I got the invitation here from the Iowa State University to join to do my master's and PhD here at the University of Iowa State. And then throughout this journey of the PhD, I could join the SDRS project, the Swine Disease Reporting System, to be the coordinator of this project.
Okay, excellent. So let's get started right away. So what is the Swine Disease Reporting System?
Yeah, perfect. The Swine Disease Reporting System is a project, collaborative project among six VDLs here in the United States, the Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. So Iowa State University, University of Minnesota, the Ohio ADDL, the Purdue Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, Kansas, and also South Dakota State University. So six swine-centric veterinary diagnostic labs that we have here that we aggregate all the diagnostic data, mainly PCR data, and also sequencing, focus more in PRRS virus or 5 sequencing. And then after we aggregate all this data, we can report back the information to the swine industry. So what we do is like mainly the main trends of detections in terms of 9 swine pathogens that we monitor. And the beauty of the project for me is that not only we aggregate data, but we also have the interpretation of an advisory group made by veterinarians and producers that they look to this information before to us and help us to interpret the trends of detections that we have every month.
Okay, and so you're saying you're focusing on 9 different diseases?
Correct, for 9 pathogens.
So which ones would those be?
Yes, we have the PRRS virus 1 and 2. We also have PCV2, PCV3, Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae, and the 3 enteric coronavirus, so PED, Delta coronavirus, and TGE, and influenza A virus. So these are all the pathogens that we have PCR data that we monitor every month.
Okay, perfect. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the key trends or insights that you're seeing through this project?
Yeah, perfect, Dr. Smith. Yeah, I will go more for this year in 2025 for us to see what's going on more often here. And I will start first with the good news that, for example, for TGE, that is a transmissible gastroenteritis virus. Since 2021, specifically in March, that we don't have a single positive case here in the US. And just for the audience to have an idea, a submission that we have can have multiple PCRs within the submission. So this I'm counting only the number of submissions. And since March, we have over 190,000 submissions for this virus and over and over 500,000 PCRs that were performed to see if these viruses were circulating in the US, and none of them were positive. So that was a good news for the US swine industry. And to be honest, we still don't know like how these happen. Like we didn't have any specific program to eliminate this virus, but it seems that it's maybe it's not even circulating in the US, or it's circulating a very low prevalence. And the other good news that we have with the report for this year is that we reached the lowest positivity for Mycoplasma hyopneumoniae, mainly in the sow farms. So we reached 7% only of positive submissions in this summer right now that we are going on. And that's the lowest percentage of positive submissions historically since 2010 that we have for this specific pathogen that we monitor. So, and this one, we have more idea what's going on because most of the industry is moving towards like the elimination of these bacteria from their sow farms. And it seems that this process is being successful because we are seeing less and less positive cases over time. And going a little bit on the bad news, and that's the part of the project as well. We have to monitor to see what's going on very well and what's not going on in a good way. And the example is PRRS virus. That in this summer right now we had the highest activity, highest positivity of this virus historically in the summer. So if we compare the summer of 2025 with the summer of all the previous years, we have the highest detection of this virus. And the number of variants as well that we also monitor through the OR5 sequences that are submitted in the VDL is only increasing in each state here in the US. And just for you to have an example, Iowa, that is the highest hog population that we have here in the US, has already over 63 variants of this virus circulating among these states. So it's a lot of virus activity, and this contributes a lot to the virus diversity as well, and to have these mutations over time.
So do you have any idea why there is like a decrease in some diseases and an increase in others?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dr. Smith. For the Mycoplasma, for example, we talk about it like the industry overall is moving towards the elimination. A lot of production systems are trying to push for that. And then with this, we can see this decreased activity. And TGE, for example, like I said, is really difficult for us to have an hypothesis for that. People say about the porcine respiratory coronavirus that have some sort of cross protection with TGE. But again, like it starts to decrease out of nothing. Let's say after PD hits the US, we had this decrease. So we are not very sure what is playing a role in this specific virus. But in terms of trends of increase, Dr. Smith, is really related to the strategies and control, the control strategies that we have for a specific pathogen. So PRRS is still like really difficult for us to control and eliminate from the farm. Is really frustrating when we talk about it. Like we try different protocols, we try to eliminate, but a lot of times like these farms break again and again. And that's a really difficult question, why we are not able to eliminate or to decrease the PRRS virus activity. And actually it's happening the opposite, right? Over the years, we are having more and more activity of this virus, unfortunately.
Yeah, because you'd think that if it was just a matter of better biosecurity, then all the diseases should be going down, but that's not what we're seeing. Like, do you know if there's a difference in like how the diseases are spread, and like that biosecurity might be better suited for some than others, and that's why you're seeing like a difference? Or do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be honest, like it's really difficult to answer because every pathogen has its particularity, right? Like Mycoplasma, for example, is a bacteria, and it doesn't survive that much in the environment. For example, these other viruses, the enteric coronavirus, for example, survive for a longer time when they are in organic matter. But even like this, like we were discussing, TGE kind of disappear, right? So it's really difficult to evaluate like this. But in my opinion, the biosecurity measures increase, and we are doing a better job in terms of biosecurity. We still have to understand more about some particular virus, like PRRS, for example, how we can handle better this virus and how we can like move in the same trend of elimination and decrease activity compare with Mycoplasma, for example. And the other thing that for me is really important for here for the US swine industry is that how the industry is changing and is being like more concentrated in very few production systems, but with a large population of cells, right? So these mega farms, let's say that we are having right now with 150, 200,000 cells in one single production system, in one single company. So this multi-site strategy maybe also contribute for that, right? Like we are having like a concentration of animals in one specific farm and then one production system. And once we break for this specific virus, it goes kind of everywhere, right? But to be honest, it's really difficult to answer this question, and we cannot move back to the past, right? Like we are not moving with the trend of having like really separate farms with a single producer is the owner of each of them. So the trend is to even more and more we have these bigger and bigger production systems, and that's going to contribute, and we have to find a way to handle this virus in this new type of industry that we have nowadays.
Yeah, for sure. And like I can imagine that this reporting system is actually helping like producers and veterinarians. So can you talk a little bit about how it can help in disease management strategies?
Yeah, for sure, Dr. Smith. Yeah, and it helps a lot in terms of have a benchmark, right? So how the industry is going, for example, and how myself in my farm here, if I'm going like at the same level of the benchmark that we have in the report, or if I have less activity compared with the report, right? So this help a lot the producer to have this comparison, and also for them to raise an alert. That's another part really important from the project that we do. That I like it. That, for example, since we have this interpretation from the advisory, when you have a specific pathogen that is increasing in activity, and we report back in this PDF format the podcast that we have and also the YouTube report, people see and say like, hey, we have to increase biosecurity in this specific state because we are having more activity of PRRS, for example. Or like for example, this last month we had a lot of positivity coming from vehicles and truck washes from PED, for example. So when we raise this alert for the industry, they can have an idea that, hey, let's enhance a little bit our washing facilities because they are seeing more positive cases coming from these specific sites for PEDs. So we have to handle more in terms of biosecurity, in terms of washing and disinfecting these sites. So I think that's the main purpose of the report, like raise these alerts for the industry to say if the activity is going up or down. And then also, like I said, to give some hope in specific diseases like we report for TGE, that we don't have a single positive case. So the industry already say like, oh, we kind of get rid of one virus at least from now in the industry, or the Mycoplasma as well. They showed then that, hey, what you are doing in regards of this pathogen is a good job and is having a huge effect in the trends of the country. So I think that's the importance that we have for the report. And I would like to add that on top of this PDF format that we have in the audio and the video report, we have the dashboards online that people can go to the SDRS website, and this is in real time every day that this diagnostic data these diagnostic tests are performed in the VDLs. We update that in the dashboard, and people can take a look that in a real time. And this one, for example, you can see kind of the positivity of all these tests, how it's going on in each state. And this is one that, for example, we get a lot of feedbacks from the veterinarians saying that, hey, we use that a lot to see like if my state or if the neighbor state is having activity above or below the expected when we compare to the historical trends.
So how long has this project been running?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's running since 2017. We start with a single diagnostic lab that was Iowa State University, and then year by year we were incorporating other veterinary diagnostic labs. So this year we're gonna complete 8 years of the project. And but the data, we have historical data since 2006, because when it started and we ask when a new VDL comes to the project, when we start to build the project itself, we ask them to like dump the historical data since 2006 for most of the pathogens. Some of them we have until 2003, and then we could see, for example, last year for many pathogens, we could see trends of 20 years of detection. So seeing increasing or decreasing for the last 20 years of data that we have in the report.
Okay, so that's quite a bit of data. So how many people are working on this project?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Like, is a huge network of laboratories and faculty members from these laboratories and universities. From here, from Iowa State, like myself, has been coordinating this project since 2022. And we have the professors that are like the PI of these projects. There is Dr. Giovanni Trevisan and also Dr. Daniel Linhares. But in the advisory group, we have almost 56 people from all the laboratories that we have, and also these producers and veterinaries that help in the interpretation. So it's a lot of people that work for this project and then help us to aggregate this data and to also give this feedback that I was telling you about what's going on in the field, what they are seeing in the field, and also in the laboratories, right? Because I talk a lot about the field veterinarians and the producers that help us to interpret the data, but the people from the laboratory help us as well to say like, hey, this trend that you are seeing, we are seeing more here in the lab. In the necropsies, we are seeing more cases too. Or even in the laboratory, when they have a specific increase in terms of detection, they also report like what's going on their side, and we can like incorporate this data, but already knowing what's going on in the behind the scenes.
So I think some of the Canadian listeners might be wondering, like, is there a way to start a network like this in Canada? So what would be your advice on that?
That's a perfect question, Dr. Smith, because I was in Canada presenting about this project a couple months ago, and a lot of faculty members from Canada got excited about the idea of the SDRS, mainly because we do only for swine, but the project has the capability to monitor whatever species, right? So the same structure of the project can be applied for poultry, for bovine, for name it, like we can do whatever species. And I was in this specific conference, we were in Calgary, and also people from the University of Montreal contact us to see like how can we do a similar approach with Canada. But my tip is like the same as here, like we start in one single laboratory, and then it starts to increase and incorporate the other laboratories. Of course, right now, since we have this network here in the United States, we can help with that. That's what I talk with most of the faculty members. Like, we can do this kind of transfer of technology to see how we do here and kind of replicate the same in Canada. We have done that with Brazil. Like, faculty members from Brazil contact us to do the same, and they start the project over there. Again, like I said, with one laboratory, but they are already planning to expand that. So, in my opinion, we can do the same with Canada, or even join forces and make a report that has like both countries included, the United States and also Canada, to report all the disease activity that we have circulating in both countries. But like I said, it can be with swine. We can also start to do for other species like poultry and bovine. But my tip is just like start with one lab. After this one lab, we can expand from the others and make the project have multiple labs and report this activity.
Okay. Like, I like the idea of combining the report for the both countries, because we have such an integrated pork production system, right? That really what's happening in one country is quite often similar to the other countries. So to me, it makes sense to have a combined report, or at least have one report where you split out US and Canada. So yeah, I would love to see that going forward.
I completely agree. Since like we had, like you said, like usually kind of what is circulating in the US also is in Canada, and even for export, right? Like some pigs comes from Canada to the US as well. So to see like these trends of what's going on in both countries, it would help a lot, and definitely we can move towards this direction too, to merge like both data from both countries and do a report with both of them, or also like do split it like we mentioned, right? Like we can aggregate this data, but do a separate report from Canada and a separate report from the US. But I definitely agree with you, like to join forces, I think is the is the way that we want to do it and have like both data integrated.
So just out of curiosity, do you also work together with the Brazilian part then?
In the Brazilian part there, what happened that, like I said, could be the same to apply in the Canada too. It was some Brazilian faculty members from Brazil. They came to the US to do some sort of training with us, so they see how the report work and see like how we operate like in a daily basis. And then after that, we help them like with all these technology transfer, let's say, like how every code that we use and how we do it in terms of aggregating this data using the statistical softwares. And then after that, they could go back there and develop their own system, but with our support in terms of, go more in that direction that this thing's going to work. Because, like I said, since we had the experience of implementing here in the US, we know the best way to do it and not like having a lot of issues that we already handle in the past. So we kind of give more tips for you to not have the same issues that we had before. So that's how we did with Brazil. But like I said, it can be multiple approaches for Canada, for example, could be like this way or could be joining forces, as I mentioned before.
Okay, excellent. So in the meantime, the Canadians will have to do with the American report. So what's your website? Where can they go to?
Yes, that's amazing. To go to the website, you can go to the fieldepi.org/SDRS. So if you go to this website, you can see the whole page of the project there, and it's gonna be like multiple links for you to go either to the dashboards or the previous reports, or even if you want to always receive these in a monthly basis, you can just click there to be in the receiver list, and every first Tuesday of the month you receive the newer report that we have. And also we always have guests from all over the world, not only the US. We had people from the Danish swine industry. We had people from Spain before. So the guests that we have in the podcast formats not necessarily only to interpret the findings that we have in the report. Sometimes we talk about a specific subject that is going on in the US in terms of high activity of a specific bacteria, and we want like these specific specialists to talk about it and help the US swine industry to understand better how to handle and how to control the specific pathogen. So, good invitation for the Canadian audience to join and receive the report as well.
Okay, excellent. So is there anything else that you would like to talk about today when it comes to the reporting system?
Well, actually, what you mentioned, Dr. Smith, is really like our desire for the future. And I'm really glad that you touched point in this specific subject of how to incorporate and how to have data from Canada, for example. And another target that we have in terms of how to do this project as well is Mexico. So in kind of make a North American network of including the swine industry of these three countries. Like I said, could be each of them having your own report or joining forces and making a single one. But that's, I think, would be like the ideal scenario in the future, so we can see what's going on in each specific country and then learn from each other. That I think that's the best way for us to handle all these pathogens that we have in the swine industry nowadays.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Okay, so to our listeners, if you're enjoying this episode of the Swine Canada podcast show presented by Wisenetics, please remember to like, subscribe, and share it with your colleagues, friends, and family.
It's time for our famous three.
Wisenetics turns podcast airtime into brand authority. We don't sell ads, we elevate voices. Curious how far your voice can go to become a reference in the industry and attract more leads? Scan the QR code and discover how we can turn your expertise into unmatched brand authority. Let's transform expertise into influence, starting now.
All right, so then we'll get started on the final three questions. So the first one is, what is your favorite swine-related book or resource?
Well, I think that's a classic answer. I try to think about another one, but usually it's the same that I always go. There's the Disease of Swine book, like is my favorite. I always go back there to double-check pathogenesis or specific information about swine pathogens. So for me, it's my favorite one. I know that is classic in the podcast, but it's the one that I always use.
Well, yeah, we have a few recurring ones for like nutritionists. It's the NRC, and like this one, it's more for the veterinarians. But like it just means it's a good book. So, yeah. Okay. So, what about a favorite book or resource outside of agriculture?
Well, one that I wouldn't say that that I like it a lot because of I could learn something new in terms of knowing about myself. It was the Strengths Based on Leadership from Gallup. It's a book that for the first time I could see one of these books that talk about leadership, but they don't try to kind of shape you to one specific type of leadership. They work with whatever is your strengths and how you could be a leader with the strengths that you have and not like acquire new ones. So it was really amazing for me when I read about this book and did the test that they have together with the book. So I would like to recommend to the audience because it was great for me to see that you don't need to have specific characteristics to be a leader. You can be a leader with your own. Just have to adapt specific things.
That's a very interesting one. And I agree because leadership, you often think about people that are in a position of management, so they have people under them, but you can lead from any position.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So,
agree. Totally agree.
Okay, perfect. And so then the last question is, like, in your opinion, what sets successful swine professionals apart from those that are not?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let me think about it. But I mean, the first one that came to my mind is be selfless and be altruistic. I think that is really important in the swine industry because you are always dealing with multiple people as a veterinarian or as a nutritionist, like in whatever role you have in the swine industry. And I think if you are there for all these people to really help them and work with them, I think you're gonna succeed. Because a lot of people, I would go back to the vet school. In the vet school, we listen a lot like, "Oh, I just want to work with animals, and that's it. I want to be a veterinarian because of that." And I mean, spoiler alert for the audience, you work more with people than with animals in the swine industry. And I think these characteristics to always be there for helping your team, to help the staff from the farm, I think it will make you succeed in this industry. And I think in whatever species that you work as a veterinarian or as an animal scientist.
Okay, perfect. I really like that answer. All right. So, thank you so much for joining me on the Swine Canada podcast show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that concludes another episode of the Swine Canada podcast show. So thanks everyone for joining. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on future episodes. So this is Miranda Smits signing off. Until next time.